On today's podcast, Rob and I talk about the Realogy cold calling lawsuit and finding your passion. Join us. Let's go. This is Industry Relations, a podcast that's at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Industry Relations Podcast with Rob and Greg. This is your co-host, the Notorious Rob Hahn, and with me is the fabulous Greg Robertson.
Hola, Rob.
How the hell are you, Greg?
Good, man. You know, just working too much, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. You look a little peaked. Hopefully, it's not the coof. You know,
well, maybe it's the black on. I'm wearing a lot of black today, I guess.
Yeah. Although I like that hat, man.
Yeah.
Old
school.
Who do I need to contact to see if I get some more W&R Studios swag?
I'll look at some of the old swag boxes we have in storage and see if I can find you one.
Yeah, it's still one of my favorite shirts. Is actually from you guys. I think I got it at CMLS or something. So
always get the comments on that. In fact, there was an MLS exec like 2 weeks ago that sent me a picture. They were on vacation and they had their shirt on, so they thought they'd send us a quick picture. So that was cool.
All right, yeah. So send over some W&R swag, and I don't know. Maybe we should do a drawing. We should do like a drawing of listeners. Like maybe if people comment on our YouTube channel, they have a chance to win some W&R swag. How's that?
You know, I have an idea that I was just going to do, but I mean, I could actually make it a thing that we could promote on Industry Relations. But I want to talk to you first about it.
Okay.
Off this.
Offline. Okay.
And then all right. We'll have something to talk about.
All right. But in the meantime, if you are watching and you make a comment in YouTube, we may do a random drawing and send you that fabulous hat that Greg is wearing right now.
Wait. Well, you know, funny because I get a lot of people. I mean, I like a flat bill.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm traveling, I'll wear a hat like this because I can cover my eyes, whatever. But a lot of people think I look like a gangster.
Well, you do. You are a gangster. You're a gangster of love. You're a gangster of real estate. We all know this. Yeah. West Side.
Represent.
Oh man! All right, so it's a good thing we're gonna have fun because we're gonna talk about problems.
Yeah, more money, more problems.
More problems, more money. The specific thing I think is, and this is a case. Honestly, I haven't read the complaint. I haven't read a lot of the stuff, but I know Inman just ran a story about the fact that the lawsuit against Realogy, which I found a little odd, but against Realogy for cold calling, just got certified as a class action. And in the course of that certification, it seems pretty evident that the judge kind of beat up on Realogy a little bit, which is kind of a trend, I think, of judges beating up on real estate companies, NAR, various things and their various, rulings and opinions prior to the actual decision. So let's talk about this because this is potentially a big deal. I know you have a number of thoughts and number of observations. So what's your take on this, Greg?
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Before you start, just so you understand, just so in case people are not aware, there is a lawsuit. Let's see what the name is.
Class action certification.
It just got class action certification, but the name of the case, I think, is called Bumpus, which is awesome. Bumpus versus Realogy, I believe it is, or it might be Bumpus versus Coldwell Banker. But in any event, what the lawsuit is about is how Realogy agents were using autodialers and other things to make phone calls to customers who are not in the National Do Not Call Registry, right? And that Realogy policy was insufficient to make sure compliance with, Do Not Call Registry. And there was a bunch of stuff in there about prohibiting agents from using pre-recorded, machine calling, robo-calling, right? So
I thought I also read it was also just, we're outsourcing some of the calling too, which
Correct.
I know is very popular with agents. Yeah.
Correct. So that's what the lawsuit is about. Realogy obviously went and said this is stupid. And I think there are a couple of things that they made your standard, sort of arguments like, we're not responsible, blah, blah, blah. One of the things they said was, we don't operate these companies, right? We're, each office owned and operated independently. And then obviously every agent is a 1099 independent contractor. And the court did not buy their argument one bit, as far as this particular issue goes. Okay, over to you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, going back to what I just talked about, where they're using different companies, or like you said, and also it's not just robo-calling, but it's actually humans. I know, and this is very popular on the agent threads that I watch or that I follow on Facebook and everything else, these groups. It's, a little bit of globalization, right? So where you can hire some guys and a group out of the Philippines, give them some scripts, and then dial for dollars, right? I mean, and I know that companies like mine outsources, for development talent with others. So a part of this is just the ease in which you can kind of get these things done nowadays by hiring groups outside of the U.S. to kind of do these things that might seem monotonous, but they're only doing it if it actually makes them money typically, right? But it's pretty reasonable when you look at it when you're hiring some of that labor out there. So it's not like just major corporations are doing this, but teams, some high production agents, just to kind of go, hey, listen, you have a farm, let's say that has 320 homes. You can buy lists with addresses of the homes that include the telephone number. Give that to write a script. Give that to somebody in the Philippines or other places to make some calls and see if you can drum up some business. I don't know. I mean, you may not have, but I've gotten calls like that, and I can't tell where they're calling from. But it's like, hey, we've got a buyer for your home. Are you interested in selling anytime soon?
Oh, I'm sure I get those phone calls, but I don't answer them because I have the Apple thing where if you're not in my contact list, it just doesn't ring through.
Yeah, I get ones that they spam detect, but there's a couple that kind of fall through. It's always
for sure.
What are the ones your car renewal, your
the auto insurance warranty. Yeah.
Christ,
that's a big one.
Those guys are clever because it usually comes from the same area code you're in with a couple of, maybe sometimes even with the first 3 digits of your own phone number. So it seems like, maybe this is legit, right? I mean, these guys are super clever at the way they do these things. And I've got some other things to talk about as far as how we can kind of relate this to our own industry here. But I mean, I want to hear your take as well.
I think my take is that this is something I kind of talked about it a while back, right? That I remember I used to have this series of presentations I would do that I called like the silencing of the realtor. And it wasn't because of this lawsuit, it was because of other things that I was seeing where agents were being super aggressive, with phone calls, right? And there was one case in particular where an agent dialed a phone number because, again, somehow they got a list and it's for all of the residents, all the phone numbers associated with a particular address, right? So they call this number and somebody picks up and starts telling, hey, are you interested in selling your house, whatever. Turned out to be the family's 9-year-old daughter, right? And this got written up in the press. This was like a Washington Post reporter whose daughter got called by an agent. And I was like, yo, this is not going to play well.
Did they call the home phone and the daughter picked up, or did the daughter have an iPhone?
It was the daughter probably had a cell phone, right? So it's
9-year-olds with cell phones. How? I guess I don't know.
What are you talking about? You're in California. I've seen like 5-year-olds with iPhones in California.
Well, I mean, that's stretching it, but I mean, I'm just, the only reason I'm kind of pausing here is because I'm trying to think like, did Hope have a phone at 9 years old? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. No, my kids had, dumb phones, but still. So it's, who knows but point is that this has been going on for a few years. We also know that this has been a common sort of, I don't know what to call it, coaching right? There's a lot of the
Sure.
coaches, a lot of the training programs talk about, calling on FISBOs.
3,000 contacts or
That's
3,000
right.
calls. That means you're going to get 300 contacts.
Right.
And that means you're going to get, 30 conversations.
Right.
And then you're going to get three leads, right? Then
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, all the teams that have like the hour of power, all the team members have to get in and start dialing for dollars. Like we know this happens, right? And we know that this is effective because otherwise they wouldn't do it.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not effective. It's effective. The issue is most people hate it, right? Most people hate it. I mean, there's all these sort of spam blockers. There's all these things. I used to have this app. I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically built by somebody who got pissed off and created a bot. So if you got a phone call from a spammer, right, you're supposed to forward the call to this bot, which was designed to waste as much time as possible. Right? It was designed to be like, that's interesting. Like, tell me more. Right?
Yeah, hold on, let me grab something. Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so I forgot what you were just saying. So the whole idea was that you would just spend 30, 40 minutes just wasting this, telemarketer.
Jeez. Terrible.
So fact is society hates it. And, I thought for a long time, it wouldn't be a lawsuit like this. There'd be some sort of regulation. It'd be some sort of technology solution. And like we're seeing with the iPhone. I don't get any phone calls that are not already in my contact list.
There was a policy put on the do not call list, right? So there was
do not call list, correct?
Yeah, and then there is technology. It's still going, forward, right? Yeah.
Except that obviously people have come up with technology to defeat the technology, right? Which is why this lawsuit exists, because the do not call registry does exist, and apparently a number of these robo-dialers, a number of these companies, a number of these agents just ignore the do not call list. And we're making telemarketing calls. Do you think
that there's been a rise in this type of these kind of calls?
I don't know. I mean, I've not looked at the marketing stats. I've not looked at it
because
recently.
I'm wondering, again, I think we've talked about this before. And there is a lot of things going on right now with vendors that provide leads to agents, right? Mm-hmm. And, seller leads or buyer leads, right? And Apple, and this has been affecting the technology sector, most of all the social media sites, and the biggest one being Facebook, with Apple's ATT policy, this app tracking transparency. And this has been kind of hell for a lot of social media sites, where they used to be able to track people from when they log in and their behavior, and then they can kind of like give businesses a really slick and easy way and dashboards to kind of say, hey, if you spend this much money, you're going to get this much back. And a lot of gaming apps would use this and everything else. But that's kind of like, and that's hit a lot of these social media sites hard because of the ad revenue that they're losing, because there's that tracking, right? So it seems to me that there's those types of things going away start to give rise to old school methods or leveraging things like phone more than they used to in the past, right? So I don't know if it's gone up or down. I kind of feel like I get more of these damn calls because I do on my iPhone. It says spam. I get a lot of those. I get them on our home phone, which I argue with my wife all the time. Why do we have a home phone? Everybody has a phone in their pocket here, but she's not having a home phone. And like 90% of those calls are like, no, thank you, bye, click.
Yeah.
So it might have to do with that. It's an overall thing that's going on with those things, and people are more leveraged. And then again, going back to like, it's very easy to hire 5 people in the Philippines, give them a script, and hook them up to a database, and then get a list of leads that they send to you every morning, right? I mean, so it's I think a combination of a lot of different things that are having to happen. If I could relate it to the industry, can I do that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so there's. Right now, it's within like associations or state, local, or MLS providers. Basically, there's a thing where once you sign up to use them, and let's say if you're using MLS data, I mean, you can't use the roster of the agent database to do any marketing, right? That's always been part
Right.
and parcel of using an agreement, right?
Right.
But there are lists out there of contacting agents, right? If you marry that with kind of some of the movements in the industry where an MLS or an association doesn't want to choose a winner as far as vendors are concerned. So, you're seeing maybe that, the site license or member benefit models of MLS vendors or third-party software vendors kind of like changing to more, let's say, usage-based or just not even anything, but just, we'll give you a tile on our site and, or some advertising on our site, and you have to kind of, you'll have to contact, you got to market directly to the agents, and we're not going to choose a winner, blah, blah, blah. Well,
right.
What that opens up to is like, okay, well, you've just and now again, I'm not saying they're using the roster at all, but there's ways of, getting lists of agents' phone numbers. Well, because of those models going away, you could have a world in the future where, vendors with all the different products they're trying to sell start just inundating agents with calls.
Start? What do you mean start? Because that's kind of been happening.
It has been happening. There's been some high profile cases of that have been gone on Inman as well about, how aggressive these guys are. I mean, poor agents are hiding under their desk when the phone rings because they don't want to. But I mean, it could get worse. It could definitely get worse depending on if you blow up some of the models that have been out there for a while in regards to site licenses, member benefits, and such like that. When you get some really aggressive people going out there, I've always talked about with Cloud CMA. I probably made the first 1,000 phone calls, right? And these were not only MLS execs and association execs, but also agents that I knew that I had from previous companies that I had good relationships with, and it's an effective way of contacting people. But God, the way that technology and this globalization has made it so easy to do that, it's so ripe for abuse. It's just so ripe for abuse.
So we'll see what happens. You're right. Look, first of all, I think real estate agents probably make the ideal telemarketing target, because I'm willing to bet rather a lot of money that no real estate agent anywhere in the country has joined the do not call registry. Right. Because their whole business is dependent upon, I listed a home, or here's my billboard. Call me if you're there's virtually no chance that any real estate agent anywhere has that. Number one. Number two, there's also very little chance that real estate agents have the software like you and I might have, right? That blocks calls from unfamiliar, because the whole point for them is to talk to unfamiliar numbers in case it's a potential client, right?
Well, if you talk to Zillow and others, they never pick up the phone anyway or answer any leads, though. So it's like,
but that's. I think there's a couple of things that are really kind of novel, that are really just kind of bugging me. You're right. So from the industry standpoint, it's gonna happen, right? But real estate agents almost have to kind of accept that, I think, because your job is to talk to people on the phone.
Yeah.
Right, to some extent. What I find really interesting about this case, and I thought this was kind of where you're headed, is the fact that the court did not accept the idea that a franchise of independent operators working with independent contractors, they just kind of wiped that out, right? That was no protection. And they're going to go forward with the lawsuit. Now, it doesn't mean that the plaintiffs will actually win. Who knows? Maybe at trial, Realogy will be able to say, wait a minute, we're just a franchise, right? Each office is independently owned and operated. So why are you talking to us? And then when you go to the office, they go, well, we're brokerage, and all of our agents are their own businesses. They're all 1099 independent contractors. So why are you coming after us? It's possible they'll win there. All I'm saying is the court in this stage was like, no. We don't buy that. And I do want to read this part of the Inman article, because it's a quote, right? What they say is, okay, all right. In response to Realogy's defense that its agents are independent contractors, plaintiffs maintain that agents make the cold calls on behalf of Realogy, Holdings Corp, and other defendants, the latter of which the plaintiffs call, quote, shell companies, that they allege Realogy has created to limit its own liability. Coldwell Banker offices do not operate independently. Each one is run in accordance with Realogy defendants' policies and procedures to ensure continuity of customer service from office to office and to protect the reputation of Coldwell Banker brand, which in turn ensures more profits for the defendants. That's a pretty powerful theory, right? And I think, okay, it's one thing when it's applied to this cold calling thing, and I'm trying to think of all the millions of other things, right? Where you have some agent that gets sued, some broker that gets sued, and the defense is, we're independent, we're a franchise, or brokers going, independent contractor. If that protection gets removed.
Yeah, the buck has got to stop somewhere, right? But I mean, in this case, you can't fault the judge or anybody in a sense. I don't know about you, but like when I talk to my non-real estate friends, right?
Yeah.
And it's very hard for them to grasp, like, well, Remax is a franchisor, or Realogy's, or Century 21's a franchisor. They're not really a real estate broker.
Right.
And then I say, well, actually, they do sometimes own and off. I mean, it's very nebulous as far as I have trouble in being in this business forever, just describing to a non-real estate person that concept, because they just know, Coldwell Banker or Remax, that they're real estate. Well, and actually Remax does own some company and offices, but not really, they're a franchisor. So it's, and maybe what the judge is saying here is that, you guys have gotten away with this, right? I mean, you're representing this, and okay, so this is a problem that you're going to have to solve, right? That because there is an implied thing by using your name that you're responsible for this, and you've been using that to your advantage. But you know what? There are some disadvantages to doing that. And then what you're saying is very interesting, because think of the word realtor. I mean, what if you go and unwind and pull the thread off of that sweater, right? How does that kind of unwind, when you start going there? So, yeah, no, it's a lot more interesting and deep than you can kind of than it just looks on the surface, for sure.
There was a big case out of New Jersey. This is a few years ago, where some homeowner got so angry, right? Like, we got into some dispute with his agent, claimed that the agent misrepresented or, whatever, somehow screwed up and was owed a bunch of money. And when this consumer took it to the broker's like, the agent's an independent contractor, right? Take it up with him. Like, what do we have to do with it? And this consumer's like, what are you talking about? This is one of your agents who works for you, right? And then we took it to corporate. Corporate's like, that's a franchisee. That's an independent contract. We don't.
It is like, operator. It is pass the buck.
And so down to the individual agent, who obviously doesn't have enough money, right? So this guy got so pissed, he created a website, right? And started talking about, these shell games, and this broker doesn't want to take responsibility, the franchise doesn't want to take responsibility, blah blah blah. And so I'm looking at that like, okay, if this precedent in this lawsuit, if the precedent gets set that if you're a franchise, you have any sort of rules or policies, you have anything like that, if you're a brokerage office and you have any sort of rules or policies, guess what? You're responsible. This 1099 thing is not going to protect you. Dude, that's a much bigger deal, right? Yeah. That is and you're right. Now, could that apply to an association, right? Because if the idea is around brand protection, so we have these rules and policies, but they're just a member, well, actually, you don't escape that, right? Because you have these rules and policies, it could be a much, much bigger deal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I do wonder what happens. Like, this case probably, it wasn't on my radar because it's not like an MLS case. It's not, it's not one of the commission lawsuit cases, but there's a chance that this is a much bigger deal, right? Because of this issue of, we don't give a crap that the agents are independent contractors. We don't care that the brokerage is an independent owned operated thing. This is going to hit everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, obviously, the Realogy guys are going to fight this. But if I'm Remax, if I'm Keller Williams, if I'm EXP, man, I've got to look at this and be like, I got to be a little terrified of what could happen, So that's on the problem side. The question is, how do we solve this?
Right.
we should get a coach to tell us how to solve this. But
what other? Yeah, what other? I mean, again, I have to go back to like it's effective, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess what you have to do is you have to, if you're doing this yourself, are you using technology or software that filters out people on the do not call list? I mean,
right.
What if you're working with an outside company, vet them. How are you handling this type of situation? Right. This is what's happening in the industry. You're going to be using my name. You're going to be using my broker's name. How do we vet, make sure if you're a broker, maybe you can kind of help your agents by vetting things that you already know to be reputable organizations that kind of do those things. Because I don't think the message is. I mean, if you're telling people just to stop doing this, I don't think that's the right approach. I think it's just there are ways of doing this ethically. I mean, it goes back. Right. I think back to email marketing, right? And spamming they have spamming themselves. And, I used to go to like this email marketing summit. We spent a lot of time on really basically making sure our list was very, very clean. And, following all the best practices of what they call permission-based marketing.
Yeah. The double opt-in.
All that, right? Because, and watching our deliverability rate, watching our cancellation rate. And I would get frustrated with, and I don't know if she listens to the podcast anymore, but my director of marketing, Frances Wiseman, right? She's really, really, all the classes and everything we went to, she took to heart. But me as an entrepreneur, I was like, God, I got a list. It's like, it's all the agents of NAR. Let's just try a campaign, Francis, of just, 330 days and blah, blah, blah. And it was always, well, what email? You're not selling that from our email address. Our this and that. I have to set up something completely, and that's that's not going to be effective because she would like give me back all the things why that we've read about, and we're practicing ourselves to do that. But it's so tempting to take those shortcuts, right? And it takes a very disciplined leader to listen and not do that, right? But there's ways.
Maybe it takes a big giant legal fee, right? Maybe it takes Realogy getting having to pay out $300 million in damages or something, and then it's like it doesn't matter how disciplined you are. A lot of folks are gonna, you know what, we're gonna stop that now. Going forward, we're going to vet the shit out of every list. We're going to follow all these best practices because we don't need.
That's not doable either, though, bro. Right? I mean, not at all. They're not going to be able to go to each franchise, unless they choose a vendor that this is the only vendor you can use to do this or something. I mean,
right.
I don't know the answer there. I mean, if they lose, like you said, I think that the court has to be a little bit more educated here on what industry works. And once they get into the specifics of the independent contractor or the franchisor relationship and understand that more, maybe something else will come up.
Well, I mean, I in this case though, the issue is going to be that these phone calls are going to people who are on the do not call registry, right? And that is a hard sort of piece of legislation. So to the extent that you've done that, you're gonna have to try and come up with some excuses. So like I said, as Realogy, you're gonna have to say something like, we don't allow this. This is already against policy, right? The brokers are gonna have to say, we don't allow this. This is already policy that you don't call people on the do not call list. So then the issue is, how did it happen? And then you gotta blame the vendor, you gotta blame the technology, you gotta blame some rogue agent, you gotta do those things and try and limit your damages that way. But it still raises the big question, right? So, okay, that's fine. How do you market, right? So going forward, if real estate coaches have to start telling people, hey, you know what? Don't do those hour of power calls. Or if you're going to do it, here are 7 things that you must do to make sure you're not calling somebody at the do not call registry or whatever, or run afoul some other law or some other regulation, right? Okay, let's say you do that. Whole point of that is to make that method less effective. That's the whole point of these regulations, right? Less
effective. I mean, how you could argue make it more effective, Rob, because how effective are going to be by calling people that have told you not to call them, right? So I could argue the exact opposite of what you're saying. If you're making up a rule which says, please only call people that have not registered on the do not call list, well, you've just made your list even better, right?
You could make that quality argument, but if your list goes from 10,000 names to 1,000, like you're going to have to make that
those 9,000 that told you not to call them are still, legitimate prospects. I mean,
who knows? I don't even know the stats for like the do not call registry. Yeah. Like I know I used to be on it. I don't know if I have to renew it. I don't know what the deal is. And there are a bunch of exceptions, right? Curiously enough, what the exceptions is? Political parties.
Oh, you mean you still could be hounded by politicians? Oh God! Really?
Amazing how they carved out that little exception, right? Amazing. I think nonprofits also can call you.
But again, all this points to is that the practice is effective.
Sure, but so is spam email.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're doing it in some level. I don't know. I mean, I've run call, have been a part of organizations that had, call centers of, let's say, 30 to 40 people. Mm-hmm. Down to like what we were doing mostly at WNR, which was inbound marketing.
Right.
I much prefer the inbound marketing than doing.
Everyone does.
Dollars, right?
Right. Everyone does, and that's the interesting. So I'm like, I think that's the way the world is changing. Right. Everything's got to be around the inbound marketing. Okay. Well, if that's the case, then a couple things happen. Number one, brand really does become important, and this has been a complaint of mine for 10 years now. Right. And I got in some trouble with it, and I'd get into fights with, brand operators. I'm like, because in real estate, brand doesn't mean anything, right? Except maybe one or two brands. In real estate, like for consumers, brand doesn't mean anything. Maybe a lot of it is because agents have been trained and encouraged to be so proactive and so aggressive, right? And I'm kind of like, okay, if we're moving to a world where you're going to say, okay, stop being so aggressive because we don't want to get sued, start doing more inbound, then you got to generate some reason for inbound, right? Whether that's, I have a really strong brand that everyone recognizes, right? So nobody's calling me about listing my house because I'm on the do not call list, but I do want to sell my house, so I better pick up the phone and I will contact somebody, And in that case, maybe you want to be with some big brand, that's known and first top of mind and all of those things. The other possibility, I think, is maybe more content-based marketing,
Yeah, inbound marketing, yeah, for sure.
Right? And again, in order to generate interest in inbound calls, but so there, it's not, you're not necessarily relying on like a brand, like a Coldwell Banker or Remax. Now you're relying on content you're producing, like stuff that you're doing yourself in order to try and get people who are going to just find you somehow. And that's the challenge, right? It's how do you get found when there's so many people doing the exact same thing?
Yeah, I mean, as a vendor, making products and selling to agents or as any entrepreneur, right? You are getting to a point where you can't too much game the system anymore. I mean, it has to focus upon, we always just say WNR was like the best marketing you can have is a great product. Right. And, with somebody being able to go to the internet and type in what is the best this, or look at all the Amazon, there's, 75,000 4-star ratings on this one product and only 3,000 with 3 stars. I mean, it gets down more and more that, people, the best thing to do is focus on your product, whatever that product is. It could be, a piece of software. It could be a chair you're making, or a sports team that you're competing out there, right? I mean,
or real estate services, or you're just a great service provider, you're a great agent, you're a great broker. I mean, maybe it'd have to be that way.
There's nothing really kind of wrong with that, right? I mean,
nothing.
So and then anything that you're doing to add on to that is more of a multiplier than anything else, right?
Correct.
So, yeah,
correct. And I think social media potentially could get more powerful because of this. Because how else are you going to get in front of people, right? I mean, certainly if you're a vendor in our space, and you want to get in front of potential customers, like you really should be advertising on, let's say, industry relations. Just saying, these micro niche, podcasts.
Imagine this, Rob. I mean, and I'm being serious here to listeners out there, that let's say you're a vendor like I am with a company, and you're selling to MLSs and association of franchisors. And we already know that these people are listening to this podcast, and we haven't had a sponsorship yet, and you're the first sponsor. Rob, I mean, are we gonna show a lot of love to that first sponsor?
I think just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
I think we're gonna, after our first sponsor in a couple of years, I think that person that steps up to the table that emails GregRobertson@gmail.com and says, Greg, I want to be the first sponsor of industry relations. I might have to get some balloons up in here.
Dude, this is a masterful job of shilling. I love it. You're the master.
Don't tee it up for me like that, bro.
You're the best. No, but
the inaugural sponsor of industry relations. We might, the flagship, the charter, the charter sponsor of industry relations. Oh my God, we're going to show a lot of love, aren't we, Rob?
Yeah. Peepaw, Meemaw, you could be the big daddy, big mama.
Grandpa.
Going back to topic, because shilling is good, and I'm happy to do it, but I do think, and this is a piece I think I did want to say, because our producer Matt, tells us all the time, right? Riches are niches, and we're a total niche podcast. Yeah. I think there's something to be said for that when you apply it to real estate. You know how real estate agents have been told and trained for years about find a niche, right? Like become a local expert, like really know everything about your neighborhood, or find some, I only do farm and ranch, I only do horse properties or whatever. And they talk about that. I think that's really smart. I would add on to that. If you do become an expert in a niche, or you want to become an expert in a niche, create content for that niche, right? Because I have to say, I think, just speaking for myself, I think I know a shit ton about MLS and the industry as a whole, but doing this with you the last, God, how long have I been doing this? 2 years, 3 years, however long we've been doing this, it's made me even better, more of an expert, because I had to learn stuff too, right? And I think we can apply that principle just to the industry as a whole, right? So let's say you're a vendor and you've got a product, doghouse interior square footage measurement tool.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You should be doing a podcast. You should be doing blogs. You should be out there doing something like we're doing around doghouse interior square footage technology or methodology or whatever, right? You got to display the fact that you know what the fuck you're talking about. If you're a real estate agent and you are I'm an expert in Las Vegas, okay? My first thing is, number one, Las Vegas is too big. You cannot be an expert in Las Vegas. I'm sorry. It's just too big.
Yeah.
Right. If you want to pretend, go ahead, but chances are that's not. But if you want to say, I'm an expert in this neighborhood of Las Vegas, okay. But then you're going to have to display that. And this isn't a common strategy. It's just not one that agents do a lot, right? Because it's really hard. It's time consuming and you don't get immediate payoffs. Whereas dialing for dollars and robocalls do result in immediate leads and immediate payoff, right? And I guess there's a part of me that feels like I get it and I'm very sympathetic, but the laws are the laws and the society's moving in this direction. And when you put yourself in the consumer's shoes, you could be a realtor doing robocalling and dialing for dollars. Doesn't mean you enjoy getting robocall dial for dollars from, auto warranty companies and, healthcare plans and whatever other fuck, are out there, right? Porn sites, whatever it is. You don't want to be the target of that. So recognize that, right? And start thinking, okay, do I have an inbound strategy? If it is, what it is, how much money am I devoting to that? Because maybe instead of paying 7 people in the Philippines to do outbound calls, right? Maybe only hire 4 of them and then spend the money you would have spent in the other 3 doing more content creation or doing whatever for inbound. I don't know. You got to think of something. And maybe coaches have to up their game in light of this lawsuit and try and think about, okay, how do we generate more brand? How do we generate more inbound? I don't know. That's just kind of my take on that piece.
No, and I think we may have talked about this in this podcast before, but there's this concept that, Kevin Kelly, I think he was the co-founder of Wired Magazine, came up with, which is 1,000 true fans, right?
Mm.
And that's, if you can get, 1,000 people to pay you $100, a year.
Yeah.
Right. And something to do that you love, you can make a living at that.
Sure.
Right. And, sometimes you just have to give yourself constraints about what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish.
Sure.
You don't, nobody has to be the next IBM or the next Microsoft or anything else. I mean, if you're a photographer, if you love screen printing, if you love woodworking, if you love whatever, if you put that stuff out there and show your authenticity and show your passion for that, getting 1,000 people to kind of follow you and go along with the journey with you and just paying $100. I mean, those are manageable things, right? That can require all this kind of like automation, so to speak, right? So, and if that, I think about that. I mean, if you work towards building, I think it would be 500 real estate clients. I mean, that's a lifetime of business. If, you're churning every 7 years. You're in the business, let's say 20 years. I mean, you can make it.
But that raises a topic maybe we should talk about at some point in the future, right? Which is, you're right, but that authenticity and that passion, like, do you really like it? So here's a question for you. How many realtors?
That's, I mean, if you're not, why are you doing this? It's a commission-only sales job.
But that's what I'm saying, right? So let me ask you this question. How many realtors do you think really love real estate?
I think the successful ones do.
What percentage of realtors do you think really, in other words, they would do it even if they were getting paid for it?
Well, that's a very small percentage.
But that's what that's what it takes, right?
You got to pay the mortgage, right? I mean,
no, I understand. What I'm saying is so some of the channels that I follow, some of the content creators that I like following the most, or some of them are carpenters, right? And because they'll do this like hour-long video of like them putting a table together or something. It's fascinating.
I love that shit. Yeah.
Fucking fascinating. Now, I understand these are professionals. I know they do it for a living, right? There's a part of me that goes, I think these guys would do it even if they weren't.
Oh, totally. Yes. Yeah.
Right? Because they love it. They just love everything about carpentry and wood and whatever, right? And it's kind of feel about real estate agents as well. Because there are, I've been fortunate enough to have worked with some really amazing agents. And what's common for them is they love real estate. They love like, oh, look at this house and the construction and look at the materials they're using and look at this, like they actually really dig real estate, right?
Yeah.
Or they're really into like this neighborhood and economic development and here's what's happening and, the local city council rep is this person and they're doing this and look at the street layout. You know what I mean? Like they really dig it. They really love it.
And I know that really love it are really more into like finding that family, the house for their little girl that is coming into the world. I mean, those human connections that they're helping, do too.
Yeah.
Right? They love that.
That's why they
say a lot of people that are successful in real estate come from the service industry because they're into helping people.
Helping people, right.
And that's a big part of what real estate does for sure.
And I think the problem there becomes that's not a niche.
Well, you have to apply that skill towards something, right? Towards a business strategy. But I mean, you have to find that whatever it is you have to find that passion. I know like one of our sales managers, what his thing is like, he manages a very large sales department. He's not necessarily, into like selling. What he's into is mentoring his team to become better at selling. He likes to give them the tools and that's what moves him is like taking a young person that came in with little experience and then helping them grow into a great salesperson. It's not really the fact of just he loves selling and calling on the phone and blah, blah, blah. Everybody finds a way within them of something they love to bring into that. Right. To do that. I love design. I love products. Right. I do love, I've written a blog for 15 years. Right. But I mean, I also was the CEO of a software company. Right. I mean, but you bring all those things into the things that the passions you have into what you're doing as well. I'm not, I'm not going to tell you like why Ruby on Rails is the way to go rather than Python, or why a Craftsman style home is better than some sort of modern architecture, mid-century or something. I mean, there's just different ways that people can find that passion and apply it to what they're doing, for sure.
So let's put it this way, because I agree with you. I think most real estate agents are motivated by this desire to help people.
Yeah.
Which is really noble. And I think it's awesome, right? Having said that, that's not a niche. I don't know that you could do a YouTube channel about how much you love to help people.
Right.
Right. So maybe that's your baseline motivation.
Well, I mean, what if helping people is being the expert in this neighborhood? You want to help people move into this neighborhood, right?
I guess, but then you're going to have to become an expert. Like, you're going to have to really love that neighborhood, right? You're going to have to really, and again, the rule that I have is you have to want to do it even if you weren't getting paid for it, right? Of course, you need to get paid, right? Like, we all have to, keep a roof over our heads. Like, I get that. Like, that's just a business reality. But that, in a real way, is the idea of the profession, right? The idea of the profession, like medieval times, was you're a doctor. You want to help, you want to heal people, and you would do it whether you're getting paid or not. You're a lawyer. You stand for justice. The idea is that you would do it whether you're getting paid or not. And maybe that's, again, it's a much bigger conversation. It's like, okay, you want to help people. That's your base motivation, right? Well, how do you want to help people? Because there are a million different ways to help people. Like, your sales manager, he could just as easily be out there volunteering at like the boys club and mentoring, those kids, right? A lot of real estate agents who are all about helping these families. There's no shortage of nonprofits that could use your help in helping the less fortunate among us. But that's not where they're spending their time. They're spending their time in real estate. Okay, cool. I'm not judging. Like, that's totally fine.
I mean, I think, again, you could want to help people and also love real estate, right?
But that's the second piece. That's the second piece, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying then you got to learn to love real estate.
Yeah.
Right? And if you really do, learn to love real estate, then you should love everything about it, and you should be able to do content. You should be able to do those things, which will result in more inbound marketing, that therefore filling that circle, right? And I think that's maybe, you know what? Honestly, I would sort of want to hear from some of our listeners, because I'm just telling you, some of the agents I've met, they love houses. They love houses. They love seeing new houses. They love going into new houses. They love construction. Yeah. They love real estate. They love land. They love landscaping. They love backyards. They love design. They love everything to do with houses. Right? They love kitchens and kitchen cabinets. They love it.
Right.
I don't love it. I don't, like, most of my homes, like, decisions are left to Sunny, because I'm like, look, as long as I have my space and I have my books, like, I don't give a crap. Right? I'm being honest, right? Which is why I think I would make a terrible real estate agent, because fundamentally, I don't really love houses.
It's got bedrooms and baths. What else?
Right. It's like, okay, it's cool. Oh, look, it's a fucking whatever famous architect's house. Oh, look how cool. I'm not, I don't love it like that. Right.
That's hilarious.
I think the best agents love houses. I think they love real estate. They also love people, and that fusion is maybe what makes them so effective. I'm just real curious, like, whether that's a necessity. So maybe one of the issues that we have as an industry is that we have hundreds of thousands of people. Maybe they love helping other people. Maybe they do, but they don't really love houses. But they're doing real estate because it's, commission, you can make a good living. So they just see it as a business. So, let's use robo-dialers and, contact people, because once I have them, then I love helping them, something along those lines. And, that's resulting in kind of what we have. Right?
Well, I'm sure there's thousands of people, millions of people out there that are working in a job that isn't their passion.
Correct.
Right. I mean, so
I
it's
agree.
like any other profession out there.
Well, no, see, that's exactly what I was going to say. Those aren't professions. Those are jobs, right? And maybe the distinction is the profession is the stuff that you just love, and you would do it even if you aren't getting paid, right? I think that would be one definition for me of what a profession is versus a job. And all jobs are noble. I'm not knocking any jobs. I don't give a shit what you do for a living. You're a plumber, noble. You're fucking cashier at a fast food joint, noble. All jobs are noble, but there's a difference between jobs and professions, and I think this has to be it. And maybe as we talk, because we've spent how many goddamn years talking about professionalism in real estate.
Yeah.
And we're talking about in terms of like your conduct and your way you dress. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's, if you want to be a professional in real estate, you got to love real estate, right? You got to, and if you don't, get out, like find something else that you love that you can make money helping people. Maybe it's cars. Maybe you love cars, then do cars, right? Maybe it's skiing. Cool. Go sell ski equipment, right? Maybe it's technology. Do that, right? There's plenty of places.
We're turning into like find your passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or that's fine. I mean, it's a job. All jobs are noble. Do your job and, do it well. Right? That's okay too. So going back to how we started this, maybe that's the solution, because it seems like the lawsuits, society, laws, technology, regulation, everything is slanted against outbound, these cold calling, that type of like interruptions and annoying people. I think that is relatively easy. So you have to generate inbound. The only way to generate inbound is to find this thing that you love and you're passionate about, that you're willing to just talk about, right? So I don't know. That's my take. I think you're in agreement.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it to me is semantics, but for sure, right? I mean, and I think that these things are not verboten. I think, as we said, there are tools and strategies in business you can do to multiply, your success, right? But you got to start from a good place for sure.
Yeah, totally. All right. So my 2 big takeaways. Number one, if you're a vendor in this space, you should consider becoming a flagship sponsor of this podcast, because Greg will love on you long time.
Flagship. I like that's a good one too.
Right. Second big takeaway, I think, is maybe just think. Second big takeaway is really more of a question. I would love to hear from some of our listeners who are top-notch professionals. Do you love real estate? I think you do, but I'd like to find out about that.
Yeah. Or do you know somebody that is successful in real estate that doesn't love it?
Right. That would be an interesting
That's an interesting one too.
Yeah.
Great. Good.
All right, man. Cool conversation from a terrible lawsuit scenario. So we're finding silver linings in clouds, because that's what we do. We're optimists. We're white pill optimists.
Is that what we are? Good.
All right, man. Hey, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everybody.